What's up, guys? Jason Rubin here, shooting a quick clip from home on this Monday. It is Labor Day. I hope everyone is enjoying their holiday, at least here in the United States. If you're watching globally, well, we'll be back in the studio tomorrow, which is Tuesday, to break down everything else that happened from a wild weekend of sports. But the two things I wanted to narrow in on for today, Sam Bradford traded to the Vikings, and an absolutely awesome weekend of college football. I'm not the world's biggest college football fan. I do follow major storylines. I follow some major teams along the way, but a lot of my focus gets split, especially during the NFL season, and that's where come Sundays and come the weekends, that's where a lot of my time is. However, I'm going to start with Sam Bradford, who was traded to the Vikings really at the start of the weekend. Friday, Saturday time. I woke up Saturday morning, I believe it was, with all the updates and the messages and a bunch of Twitter reactions saying, "What WTF is this?" Bradford gets traded to the Vikings. In return, the Eagles get a first-round pick for 2017, a fourth-round pick for 2018. My favorite thing about the fourth-round pick, though, is there's a stipulation which could turn it into a first-round pick. A stipulation that might be impossible. Now, I don't mean to downplay Vikings fans' season already, but for that pick to become, or I should say Eagles fans, really, for that pick to become a first-round pick, the Vikings have to win the Super Bowl, and Sam Bradford has to play 80% of the snaps. Neither of those have ever happened in a season of Sam Bradford. However, his offseason, his preseason, looked pretty good. He looks like he's past his previous injury worries. That doesn't mean new injury worries can't come up. However, looks like he's past some of the old injury worries. Last season, 6.5 yards per attempt, which puts him in the middle of the pack for quarterbacks. Nowhere near the top 5-6 that you'd really want to be at. 3,700 yards, 19 touchdowns and 14 interceptions, and a 65% completion rate. Well, that's not necessarily going to get the job done, at least in Minnesota. Now, can it get you enough, a competent quarterback who's at least 28 years old, opposed to the 36-year-old backup that was Shaun Hill, to trust your defense, put a lot on Adrian Peterson, a 31-year-old rusher, have a downfield threat in Stephon Diggs, Cordell Patterson in the mix? Yeah, you could still win the division. I don't think Mike McCarthy's the best coach in Green Bay. I think Mike McCarthy actually coaches Green Bay out of wins occasionally, even though Aaron Rodgers literally does everything in his power offensively to make sure the Packers win games. My money would be on Green Bay to win the division, but with Sam Bradford instead of Shaun Hill, I still think the Vikings can make the playoffs. It also makes sense as to why the trade went through. I know Bradford, a couple of Bradford's old coaches are coaching on Minnesota from at least the St. Louis Times, so it seemed like it would have been a more natural fit. For the Eagles, they get two great draft picks, which is one of the most important things you can trade for in the NFL. You already have young Carson Wentz, who's not ready yet, and they shouldn't rush him. So Wentz coming in this season, from this year's draft, he's going to see some playing time this year. I'm not sure if he's going to take over the full starting role this year, because I know they have Chase Daniel as their backup quarterback too, but eventually it's going to be Carson Wentz's team if all pans out correctly, and with two new draft picks, in addition to the draft picks they'll get coming into 2017, they should be able to start building talent around Carson Wentz for the future. So for the Eagles fans, just be patient, and you might have yourself a pretty damn good team in a couple of years. And also the Chip Kelly era is over, and I think most Eagles fans are ecstatic about that. All right, so in terms of was it a good trade, I think no for the Vikings overall, just because Teddy Bridgewater, unless they know something we don't, for example, that his injury was so bad that he's never coming back, although it does seem like, according to Teddy Bridgewater and others around the league, that it was a bad freak non-contact injury, ACL tear, out for the season. But, I mean, look, I know Adrian Peterson is the anomaly to the situation. He tore his ACL and came back and won MVP. I don't think Teddy Bridgewater is going to come back and win MVP, but I do think he's got enough heart in him to come back and play for longer than his very short-lived career so far, and I would hope that, because every interview you've ever watched with Teddy Bridgewater just seems like he's a charismatic, down-to-earth, awesome guy that you'd want to root for. So the injury earlier this week was such a big blow to Vikings and Vikings fans. I'm sure Drew Magary, who's a writer for Deadspin and is a Viking fan, is rolling over in his grave somewhere, if he were, because he probably feels just about dead after watching Bridgewater go down. And also, Katie Nolan tweeted at him over the weekend saying you need to rewrite the Why Your Team Sucks Philadelphia Eagles edition now that Sam Bradford's out of there. I agree with Katie Nolan 100%. We need an update, especially one for the Vikings too. Hopefully Drew Magary will come through with those. All right, so moving forward, because college football, what a weekend. Holy S. Over this entire weekend, I wasn't necessarily the most excited person to watch it, and then of course you turn it on and you're like, you're right, it's still football, it still gets you going, it still helps you, it makes sports a little bit better having football back over the weekend. The fact that there's no NFL this weekend, this past weekend, and college football took over Labor Day weekend is of the utmost importance because it puts college football in its sole own spotlight, and it's probably going to be the most talked about college football weekend for the next week, at least, until the NFL comes back. And then Thursday rolls around, the Panthers play the Broncos, and you start to kind of forget quickly. At least that's how I kind of see it turning out to be. Regardless, I'm a Wisconsin Badgers fan. My dad went to Wisconsin. Therefore, I grew up watching Badger football and Badger basketball. The fact that they beat LSU, technically in a home stadium, it wasn't their stadium, it was Lambeau Field, but Wisconsin, obviously the fan base was big Cheesehead fans there, and they have that deal with the SEC to get usually blown out by an SEC team in the first week of the season. Nice surprise. Overreaction to Wisconsin because I don't think their quarterback, Bart Houston, who's named after Bart Starr, believe it or not, I don't think he looked like a competent enough college quarterback. Fast enough to be able to read the defense and just made some really poor throws. Yes, they sneaked out a win, a very big, important win against the fifth-ranked team in the country, and they did keep a good job. They kept Leonard Fournette in check, even though he started to run downhill in the third quarter finally. I think Leonard Fournette will eventually turn on the Jets, if not just in week 2. He's going to start rushing for 200 yards a game like he was doing last year. So LSU, as the fifth-ranked team of the country, playing on the road, a shock loss, yes, undoubtedly, but nothing they can't come back from. They play in the SEC. A one-loss team getting the playoffs, a two-loss team getting the playoffs. So if you're a big LSU fan, their schedule is murder through the second half of the season. If you win those games that are extremely brutal against SEC opponents, you're going to put yourself in position, of course, to make the playoffs. You're playing in the SEC. However, another team in the SEC who I sarcastically tweeted about over the weekend was Alabama, who beat USC, who held USC to without a touchdown for the first time since 1997. USC coming in this year as once again a hot commodity in college football because they're the Trojans and they have a huge following nationwide, and there's a love-hate relationship across the country with USC. They were a little bit overrated, and then they ran into Nick Saban's defense and Nick Saban's Alabama. So I sarcastically tweeted, congrats to Nick Saban for winning his 6th national title this year, which would tie him for the most all-time with Bear Bryant. If that's what Alabama's going to do to teams this year, you can't book it because it's football and things become unpredictable. But one of the more predictable aspects of football, college football at least, especially SEC football, if Alabama is hot, they don't stop. So I would be surprised if a team really challenges them all season long, but I was just adding into the overreaction in general that was. The best game of the weekend, undoubtedly Texas versus Notre Dame. This game literally had everything. Every article that ran it. I mean, a blocked extra point to tie the game at 37. A nice double overtime with a back and forth and a great call at the end. Texas is back, baby, when Swoops ran into the end zone, dove absolutely everything on the line to grab the touchdown to win. Couple things to keep in mind before we go into complete overreaction to Charlie Strong in Texas being actually back. Home game against Notre Dame. 2 things I know. 1, home games are extremely important. It wasn't necessarily a neutral site game. It was a home game for the Longhorns. And Notre Dame was an overrated number 10 in the nation. Notre Dame always tends to be an overrated ranked team in the nation because a lot of that and preseason polls are almost always BS. This is what was talked about across sports radio for 2 weeks is what do you think of the preseason college football poll? You should never have a preseason college football poll. You need to see what these teams look like, not based off who stayed from last year. See what they look like this year to make your rankings. So I think 1, Notre Dame was an overrated 10. 2, Texas had a very, very strong home crowd behind them. And 3, the fact of the matter, in such a college football way, they gave up so many points each in such ridiculous ways. Texas's defense, when Notre Dame, when they were down 31-4, when they were up, Texas was up 31-14, Notre Dame starts railing off. They roll off 3 straight touchdowns. The blown coverage was so shockingly bad that you have to worry about that going forward. If they learn from that, they can get better and not give up 44, 47 points in these games. Sure, their offense looks like it was moving. Buechele, their quarterback, looked like he was somebody that would make NFL offensive coordinators maybe start to drool just off one game that we really got to look at him in a big national spotlight. If he continues that, he might start to get some more hype, which you would want from that. And of course, Torrey Hunter Jr. plays on Notre Dame. That's awesome, having one of the greatest catching outfielders in baseball. Having his son there making the same type of catches in football, pretty awesome. I thought that was the best game of the weekend. NFL wide receiver like Golden Tate was tweeting about it. A bunch of Twitter reaction came from that game, so I'm sure I'll just throw them up as they go through. That's what I have for the weekend. That was everything. Sam Bradford, that really wasn't everything, but there was a lot. But Sam Bradford, the Minnesota Vikings, Eagles, college football. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. Francis and I will be back in the studio tomorrow. If you don't mind, follow me on Twitter at JasonRuben91. Instagram is the same. We have a podcast. Take a look at the link in the description below. Also, lots of fun stuff. I hope you enjoy your Labor Day if you're in the U.S. If you're global, enjoy the clips, and we'll see you tomorrow.